The court will call 24 CF 1048, State of Wisconsin versus Taylor Shabbus appearances.
Stop it. Stop it. Rachel, call. Taylor, stop. You went off on your attorney, Taylor. You went crazy on your attorney.
Yeah, let's just go to secondary.
Taylor, can you walk?
Oh, yeah.
At this point, I'm going to put a motion in the withdrawal from this matter.
September 26, 2023, Green Bay, Wisconsin. The air inside the courtroom feels heavy, saturated with tension that presses against the chest. There is no quiet dignity here. Instead, there is the sharp clink of metal shackles against wood and the low murmur of spectators drawn not by justice, but by spectacle. At the defense table sits Taylor Shabbus. Her eyes drift, unfocused, then suddenly lock in place, flashing a smile that lands like a physical blow to those watching. It is not fear. It is not remorse. It is something colder. The judge prepares to speak. The room seems to exhale all at once. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. The gavel strikes, a final crack echoing across marble walls. With that sound, a 25-year-old woman is severed from ordinary human time. For Taylor Shabbus, the world does not end with a needle or an electric chair. It ends with endless mornings and identical nights, a calendar that will never reach its final page. Now, standing in December 2025, 2 years into her sentence, the truth has become unavoidable. For a mind fractured and volatile, death would have been a mercy, a brief darkness. Instead, she was given something else, a living death. She is a prisoner of the state, but more importantly, she is trapped inside the slow collapse of her own psyche, sealed within concrete walls where every scream returns unanswered. Stay with me, because what exists beyond those walls is far more disturbing than any courtroom footage. The crime itself was not an accident or a moment of passion. It was a calculated descent into brutality that stunned even veteran investigators in Green Bay. This is Court of Secrets, where silence hides truth and every story demands to be remembered. We uncover the victims, the motives, and the failures buried by time. Subscribe now and join us as we step into the darkest cases. Because every smile hides a story, and every mystery deserves a voice to be heard. February 23, 2022. A quiet residential street in Green Bay, Wisconsin. A basement tucked beneath an ordinary home on Stony Brook Lane. Nothing about the exterior suggested horror. No warning signs. No visible rupture in normalcy. But inside that basement, the air would soon carry a weight that investigators would never forget. The kind of weight that clings to memory. The kind that follows you home. The night unfolded slowly, deliberately, with a precision that makes the aftermath impossible to dismiss as a momentary lapse. This was not chaos without direction. This was violence with intention. The sensory imprint of that space would later be described in fragments. A metallic smell hanging heavy in the air. The cold seeping upward through concrete walls. The oppressive quiet between movements. When police arrived, they did not encounter a single crime scene. They encountered layers. Evidence stacked upon evidence. Decisions piled atop decisions. This was not simply a homicide. It was a dismantling of a human being, carried out over time, not seconds. Investigators would later say the scene did not resemble panic. It resembled control. Objects were moved. Actions were repeated. There was no frantic attempt to flee. No immediate call for help. What they found instead was a methodical progression that forced even seasoned officers to pause. In one container, they discovered remains that confirmed the worst fears. This was no accident. This was not a sudden break from reality. It was the endpoint of a long, visible descent. To understand what happened in that basement, you have to rewind years, not hours. The warning signs were not subtle. They were documented, recorded, filed. There were reports of domestic violence, patterns of instability, escalating substance abuse involving methamphetamine and prescription medication. There were violations of court orders, a removed ankle monitor, periods of disappearance that should have triggered intervention. The system did not miss her. The system processed her. And then, repeatedly, the system released her. Each release carried consequences. Each ignored red flag compounded the risk. By the time that night arrived, the conditions for catastrophe were already in place. The drugs did not create the violence. They amplified what was already there. A personality marked by impulsivity, aggression, and a disturbing lack of emotional regulation. This was not a person overwhelmed by guilt or fear. This was someone who lingered. Psychologists would later debate whether Taylor Shabbus was capable of empathy in any conventional sense. Was this a complete absence of emotional capacity, or the result of prolonged chemical erosion combined with trauma? The answer may never be singular. What is clear is that she did not stop when a rational mind would have intervened. She did not retreat when the moment passed. She remained in that basement long after any intoxicating effect should have faded. Time matters here. Hours matter. Choices made after the point of no return matter most. Those choices define intent. They define responsibility. And they dismantle the argument that this was an uncontrollable episode. It was sustained. It was reinforced. It was revisited. If you are still here, you are not watching casually. You are examining the anatomy of a failure. We are a small but growing group committed to understanding how stories like this unfold, not just how they end. Subscribe and become part of that effort. These cases do not vanish when the headlines fade. They harden into silence. Now we move forward, not away from the crime, but into its consequences. Because the violence did not end in that basement. It followed her into the courtroom, into the prison system, and into every interaction that came after. The next phase is not about what she did, but what she became when the world closed in. By December 2025, Taylor Shabbus is 27 years old. In the outside world, this is a threshold age. Careers take shape. Families begin. Futures feel tangible. For her, that timeline has been erased. Life without parole does not simply remove freedom. It deletes milestones, collapses time into repetition. Every year becomes identical to the last, marked only by institutional routines and physical decline. She will never experience an unfiltered horizon again. Every view is segmented by fencing, concrete, and steel. Every human interaction is mediated by authority. Touch is procedural. Privacy is non-existent. Choice is eliminated in increments so small they barely register until nothing remains. This is not a punishment measured in pain. It is measured in absence. In 20 years, she will be 47. The volatility displayed in court will be replaced by institutional fatigue. In 50 years, she will be elderly, sustained by a system designed to contain, not restore. Her name will survive only in records and archived footage. This is the reality of the living death. The most severe consequence is not confinement. It is erasure. She is currently housed at Taycheedah Correctional Institution, a facility reserved for Wisconsin's most high-risk female offenders. This is not a rehabilitative environment. It is a containment structure. Due to repeated violent incidents, she is frequently placed in restricted housing. Administrative confinement. Suicide watch. 23 hours a day alone with her thoughts. The routine is unyielding. Lights activate before dawn. Meals arrive through a slot. Surveillance is constant. Every movement is recorded. There is no audience, no chaos, no validation. For someone who thrived on attention, this is a psychological vacuum. Even within prison hierarchy, she exists on the margins. Certain crimes place individuals beyond informal boundaries. Isolation becomes both imposed and enforced. Mental health staff intervene when possible, but there are limits. Therapy cannot reconstruct what was never stable. Medication can suppress symptoms, not rebuild identity. Guards view her as unpredictable. Other inmates view her as untouchable. The result is near total social deprivation. As we move through this analysis, one principle remains non-negotiable. There is no sympathy for the perpetrator. The victim is the only priority. A young man lost his life in a manner that defies comprehension. His family carries that loss indefinitely. Nothing that happens to her outweighs that reality. And yet, the question persists. Is permanent psychological deterioration a form of justice? Or is it sanctioned decay? Life without parole for someone so young forces society to confront its own intentions. Are we protecting the public? Or are we inflicting a prolonged punishment designed to mirror suffering? This is not a rhetorical exercise. It is a structural one. The answers define policy, ethics, and accountability. And the story does not pause here, because her behavior did not stabilize after sentencing. It escalated. 2 years after sentencing, the courtroom doors opened again. December 1st, 2025. This time, the charge was not historical. It was current. An assault on a prison sergeant and a nurse. Additional time imposed. Consequences stacked. The narrative that incarceration would neutralize the threat collapsed under evidence of continued violence. The substances were gone by then. No methamphetamine. No prescription abuse. The chemical explanations no longer applied. What remained was unfiltered behavior. During the incident, reports indicate she laughed after restraint. Not panic. Not confusion. Amusement. This detail matters. It suggests persistence, not remission. Psychologically, this presents a grim profile. A person unable to adapt to any social structure. A personality that reacts to control with aggression. A mind that does not recalibrate when stimuli are removed. The living death has not softened her. It has stripped away the final restraints. She now appears in hearings restrained, sometimes with protective equipment, a visual acknowledgement that even within maximum security, she is considered a risk. The system is no longer attempting to reform. It is attempting to manage deterioration. This is the endpoint of the story most people never see. The crime fades from public memory. The trial footage circulates briefly. Then attention moves on. But behind the walls, the consequences continue to unfold in slow motion. Day after identical day. Her appeals have been denied. Legal avenues exhausted. There is no procedural escape. Only duration. The years ahead stretch forward without variation. This is the architecture of the living death. And yet, society must still answer the question it created. Does this serve justice? Or does it simply warehouse a human being until biology intervenes? Is this accountability? Or is it vengeance refined into policy? There are no easy conclusions. Only responsibility. The responsibility to remember the victim. The responsibility to examine systemic failure. And the responsibility to confront what punishment means when redemption is removed entirely. This case is not an anomaly. It is a file among many. A warning embedded in documentation. If you are here, you are part of a group that refuses to let these stories disappear into storage. Subscribe. Stay engaged. Because the next case may challenge your understanding even further. As we reach the end of this investigation, one boundary must remain firm. There is no sympathy to extend here. Shadthirian lost his life in a way language struggles to contain. His family wakes up every day carrying the image of that basement, a burden that does not fade with time. What Taylor Shabbus experiences inside prison walls is not tragedy. It is consequence. We are not here to excuse her actions. We examine her as a case study in what happens when violence, addiction, and unchecked instability collide and the human conscience disconnects entirely. Yet the question refuses to stay buried. Is life without parole inside a high-security psychiatric unit a measured response? Or is it a living death more severe than execution, a slow erosion of mind and identity designed to punish through endurance? Does this sentence deliver justice for Shad? Or does it cross the line into revenge, carefully wrapped in legal language and courtroom procedure? Justice or revenge? The answer depends on where you draw the moral boundary. Taylor Shabbus is not the story. She is one file among many stored in a dark cabinet of failures. Tomorrow, we open another drawer, one that may unsettle you even more. If you are not subscribed, you will miss the case entirely.